has hosted a virtual summit with the leaders of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan to commemorate the 30th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic ties. What are some of the takeaways from the meeting? How have China and the Central Asian nations cooperated on trade, energy, and security over the past 30 years? And what are the prospects for the future as China plans to invest more in the Central Asian countries? To help us answer these questions, I'm joined by Mark Sloboda, Moscow-based international affairs and security analyst, Zhou Rong, senior fellow of the Chongyang Institute for Financial Studies at Renmin University of China, and Djoomart Otorbaev, former Prime Minister of the Kyrgyz Republic. That's our topic. I'm Xu Jinduo. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. Mr. Zhou Rong, I will start with you. Give us some background information about the relationship between China and these 5 Central Asian nations. Like, how important is China market to these nations, and how Central Asian nations are important to China in terms of security, energy, etc.?
Thank you. I think the first things first is we should recognize that all these 5 countries are newly independent or independent countries from former Soviet Union, and then 3 countries have the common international borders with China. They are the Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Kazakhstan. And at that time, China have a lot of negotiation with each of the 3 countries. And also, they are called CARs, that is Central Asian countries, Central Asian republics. So, and later, that from that kind of border issues, China and Central Asia countries, as well as Russia, developed SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and later Uzbekistan joined in. At the beginning, SCO just talked something about the security issue. Later, we began to develop the economic and trade relations with Central Asian republics, especially up the Belt and Road. International cooperation and initiative promoted. Then that is the relationship, economic and trade relationship between China and 5 CARS countries developing very fast. And later, especially President Xi Jinping mentioned today, we are going to develop a more art relationship, people-to-people relationship, and now we have already just undertaken some important energy relationship and a lot of mega projects now are under construction by Chinese company. And I suppose in the future, that is, at the beginning, China did not just export Asian countries a lot of products, vice versa. But right now, that is a trade relation between China and CARS countries developing very fast. Something about 50 billion US dollars. That is to say, there's a more our CARS country can export to China or through China to the other country. China also has the ability to export more to Central Asian countries.
That's right. A very important trade relationship, at least from this aspect, you can see. Mr. Otorbaev, here are some numbers, I have at hand. The trade relationship, like a trade volume between China and the 5 Central Asian nations. Over the past 30 years, they say, at the very beginning, it's about 30 years ago, their total trade was about over 50 million, of less than $500 million. But now, 30 years later, it's over $50 billion. That's about 100-fold increase. That's really something.
Yes, we are proud in our relationship with China, but those numbers not only characteristic which we have to be proud of. For 30 years, step by step, our countries establish trust. As great Confucius said, trust is everything. So now we are in good harmonious relationship between each other. Many people traveling to each other. We're very much impressed with the growth of China. What is important if you're talking about economic numbers, that our export to China is growing. And currently, overall export is from Central Asia to China consists of 23% of total export. So China is an incredible market, incredible country in terms of exporting their goods. But what's happening now that is this two-way road. So we importing from China a lot of things, but we're also exporting to China many things. But what President Xi Jinping said is that countries are going to strengthen those strong already relationships. We are going not only on a trade between energy or bring money to improve our infrastructure, but it will be also higher quality interaction. So $14 billion of Chinese investments to Central Asia will be more, but we're also looking for the high quality investments, not only in transport and energy, but in high tech, in digital, in artificial intelligence, in other good quality investments.
Well, that's a huge potential, sounds like, over there. So, Mark, President Xi Jinping gave an important speech about this relationship, developed over the past 30 years. So, what impressed you the most if you look at the speech?
First of all, it has to be said that the China plus or C5 plus China format, it's not the first C5 format. We have seen other countries attempt this type of, shall we say, parental relationship with the Central Asian states. We've seen it from the EU, we've seen it from Japan, we've seen it from South Korea, we've seen it from India and the United States. But all of the previous iterations have failed in a short order of time and amounted to nothing substantial. This time, I believe, is substantially different for three reasons that are interrelated. The first is geography. China is right there. So that is a factorial difference. Second is trade. And we've seen the massive increases of trade, 100-fold already mentioned. And the third one is investment. And while none of the previous attempts to bring the Central Asians together with outside powers have offered substantial investment that the Central Asian states badly need, China can provide and is providing. And they're not only providing investment, of course, far more importantly, particularly with the Belt and Road Initiative, they are providing infrastructure. And the further promises that Xi Jinping made towards development goals, livelihood bonuses, help with coronavirus, all indicate that China is very serious and is willing to put, the renminbi, the money, where their mouth is.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Otorbaev, just as Mark has said, President Xi Jinping promised like 50 million doses of COVID, vaccines to Central Asian countries, and also like $500 million in grant assistance. So about the livelihood projects.
Niet.
Yeah. So, Mr. Otorbaev, what's your expectation of this, like a $500 million US dollars? In what aspects and how they are going to help, local people?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Central Asia still have a lot of room and space for development. Those resources will be used for the improving of life of ordinary people here. We already, during the 30 years of cooperation, got very good support from China in different type of humanitarian assistance. For example, in my country, a lot of grants of China devoted into the improving of the road infrastructure in my capital city of Bishkek. So every motorist driving over the city of Bishkek over excellent roads, remembering that this is Chinese gift, Chinese support and assistance, or medical, as you said, or healthcare or education. We're very much impressed, especially with commitment which China giving to us in terms of investment into the education. I want to underline that Central Asian nations have very high educational standard of population. It's legacy of the former Soviet Union. We have to work with China on that aspect especially. We don't need only everything just investments. We want to target investment from China related to high tech. Yeah? I am even thinking that China, if China wanted to build its own Silicon Valley, you have to invite foreigners to be in those Silicon Valleys. And Central Asian citizen could be the first in line because we are next door. We have very high level of education, especially in mathematics, physics, and natural sciences. I, as professor in physics, know it very well. So we need to cooperate in completely different dimension on the 21st century areas, and it will be win-win, absolutely.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Mr. Zhou Rong here.
Yeah,
People-to-people exchange, of course. We are looking at, as President Xi proposed, 100 pairs of sister cities between China and the Central Asia, and of course, like 1,200 governmental scholarships. But here, Mr. Otorbaev mentioned about making good use of the talents from Central Asia. Basically, the two countries are looking, the two regions, I would say, looking at the future. Long-term stability is not about simply a piece of infrastructure or simply investment, one-time investment. It's a long-term. It's about people to people, and working together contributes to the stability and development in terms of the high-tech sector. What do you make of that?
Yeah. First, I would like to say thank you. First, I would like to say, Chinese people sincerely hope all the CARS countries lead a very good life. And your prosperity and your strength is also the happiness of Chinese people. And also that is just now one of our guests said that is most of the CARS country, the people are well educated because of former Soviet Union's education system. But right now, because we are entering the new century, we need to have talents, communication and talents exchanges more, especially to face the challenge for the innovation, for the new science technology revolution. So right now, that is President Xi Jinping and also said that we need to have a more kind of schools, especially something we can say the jointly science and technology research center, and also just to enhance the communication, not only between the countries, but also between cities, especially if we have the enough people to people's contacts and the individual cities to individual cities contact, that will just solidate the foundation of the bilateral or multilateral relationship between China with individual CARS country and with the CARS country as a whole.
Mark, on the latest development, of course, Beijing Winter Olympics and the leaders of the 5 countries all said that they are looking forward to attending this opening ceremony of the 2022 Olympics, in Beijing next week. Okay, we have a tech issue here, and Mr. Otorbaev, given we know that some Western nations talk about not sending officials, they have this making a fuss about issues between China and the U.S. particular. So, what's the significance of the leaders of the 5 countries? Their personal presence at the games.
You want me to answer?
Mr. Otorbaev?
Who is?
Yeah.
Okay, it's a very important symbolical step. So China is going to see many political leaders at the opening ceremony of Winter Olympics. It will be incredibly important event, and the world will show the sympathy to the China and appreciation what China is doing in terms of uniting the world. In terms of participation of our presidents, is absolutely clear. So we lived for many, many centuries and generations together, and we will live in the future together. We will be neighbors forever. In that respect, as we used to say, the good neighbor is much better than bad relative. So it's harmonious relationship. We understand what China want to achieve. They know our own interests. So it's so far things going on well, and it's a very important symbolic step. And in this important moment for Chinese civilization, I would say, our political leaders will be shoulder by shoulder with our Chinese friends.
Well, Mark, I also want to have your opinion on that. The 5 leaders said that they will be joining this opening ceremony of the Beijing Winter Olympics next week to start. So what do you make of that?
Yeah, not only the 5 leaders, of course, of Central Asia, but President Putin of Russia will also be on hand. And I think that is incredibly symbolic, a show of political, geopolitical unity of the states of Eurasia with China, which is particularly important when we have heard, repeated calls of diplomatic boycotts from the United States, Australia, and other Western countries. The show of unity there against attempts to sabotage the Beijing Olympics by some countries is extremely important.
Well, Jerome, if you look at the Central Asian region and China here, we have, of course, not only at least 3 countries, bordering China, but also there's a big project that connecting China and the 5 countries. That is, Belt and Road Initiative.
Yes.
This is, of course, a huge project, but it's especially important, I would say, for China and the Central Asia region here.
Yes. I think the important things, we know that Central Asia is not only the important hub of Belt and Road, but also it's a great bridge between Europe and Asia. It's, we can say, Eurasian bridge, and strengthen relationship with CARS country economically, not only to help China and Central Asia, but also to help Russia, China, and Central Asia. We can say in the future, Central Asia's country can use China as one of the road to the East Asian country like Korea and Japan, and also to use Russia to go to the West Europe and also the rest of the area, even to the Middle East. We can say the connection between Central Asia and China is not only for the 2 sides, but also for the peace and the stability of the region. And in the future, I suppose this time, just now you mentioned that is all the 5 countries, head of the states or head of the government may come to China to attend the opening ceremony of Winter Olympic Games. Remember, 7 years ago, all of them, as well as with Russian leader, come to China to attend the ceremony of anniversary, 70 years anniversary of counter-Japanese aggressors, you see. So that can say the political unity and the solidarity between CARS country and China. And I suppose the relationship, the strength of the relationship between the 2 sides can also promote the relationship between Russia and China, and Russia and Central Asia, and also enhance internal relations within the Central Asia countries.
Mr. Otorbaev, of course, we talked about the investment, we talked about people-to-people exchange, and also BRI. And basically, most of the countries are also in the same group. That's the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Which at the beginning, it's really about the security. The fight against
Yes.
so-called 3 evil forces, basically.
Yes.
Separatism,
Yes.
Extremism, and of course terrorism. So here is the Russian ambassador to China said just a couple of days ago on the SCO. He said that, we have the ability, the SCO, that the special rule. He highlighted the special rule of SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, that brings together Central Asian countries, Russia, China. Within the SCO, he said, we have the ability to solve the problems that concern all the countries at once. How important, is the fact that most of the countries in the region, they are SCO members, Mr. Otorbaev?
Me?
Mr. Otorbaev, sorry.
Almost all Central Asian countries, we were the founding members of Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and therefore we were very much happy what's happening with this the biggest institution in the world, let me say, especially if you look for the future, with such drivers like China, Russia, India. Shanghai Cooperation Organization will be extremely influential. And we are a region which is located just in the center of this Eurasian continent. So we are very much looking forward, and we are very emotional about all Silk Road story. When Central Asia was the most wealthiest part of the world, with the most invention in mathematics, physics, literature, poetry, geography were made, because of the Great Silk Road, because we were bridge connected all major powers around the world. So Shanghai Cooperation Organization is extremely important. And the fact that such different countries like Russia, India, also in this organization is also create a lot of tasks that we will be building harmonious relationship with these institutions. Of course, we are very much interested because we are just in between. Harmonious relationships between center of economic power of the 21st century all are in Eurasia. Security elements, cooperation elements, trust must be built, and there is a platform which exists currently, which is Shanghai Cooperation Organization. I believe with the wisdom and political wisdom of all leaders of our countries and people in our countries will lead this organization to be the most successful around the world, which will show to other places on how to do peace and prosperity by working together.
Well, Zhou Rong, of course, with the SCO here, stability is important. I mean, it goes without saying, of course, every country needs stability, but also, in particular, it's about the energy cooperation here. Like for China, for example, there are, gas pipes running through Kazakhstan and other countries. It's important, to import this energy on the land route, probably, some would say, rather than on the sea route. This for China's energy security, of course. For some of the countries here is the economic issue, is energy issue. You can make money out of exporting what you have, the resources over there. So stability is very important to all the nations here.
Yes. Can I just say one thing?
Go ahead.
I think the important things why Xinjiang is quite stable socially, economically, and politically is because on the whole, Central Asian countries can maintain stability. Though there's terrorist groups in the southern part of the Central Asia, but on the whole, for the last 30 years, Central Asia can maintain its stability because the ICO, because the cooperation on counterterrorism within ICO countries, within China and the Central Asian countries. So the stability of Central Asia is very good for Xinjiang stability. And the Xinjiang stability is very good news for Central Asia's stability. So this is very important. They have the mutual effect to each other. Right now, there's no spillover effect of the terrorists or some kind of chaos from Central Asia to Xinjiang, vice versa.
Well, Mark, of course, if you take a look at the media, in particular in the Western mainstream media, there are people, there are stories. You can see there's either a speculation or effort, basically, to drive a wedge between China and Russia. They would say, to that, I would say, the Russian ambassador to China, Denisov, said, Central Asian states are natural partners both for China and Russia. They are our neighbors, they are our close friends. The interests that both Russia and China have in Central Asia are closely intertwined, but they go in the same direction. Both Russia and China are equally interested in the stable, predictable, and prosperous Central Asian neighbors. Yes. What's your take on that, Mark?
Yeah, so Western media commentators, have long salivated over the idea of a major Russia-China rift over competition and influence in the Central Asian states. And actually, we have seen the opposite happen. Both the Russian and Chinese presidents are quite clear that the two countries have never had better relations in their history. And, every year, the economic to trade balance, keeps increasing. We see new records, and particularly military cooperation is reaching heights where people are starting to look or talk beyond, even the firmly rhetorical strategic partnership for the reality of the alliance. And rather than competition, instead, we have seen a cooperation in synergy between Russia and China over the Central Asian states through the medium of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. It has been an excellent medium, far undervalued and understated in its ability to manage, the two great powers will, of course, have differences, right? They are not going to be online 100% of the time. But the Shanghai Cooperation has managed to manage those differences and instead turn them largely into positives. And I think that is something that is important. Russia is often seen as the security and political provider, where China is seen as the economics and development provider. And that can be an overgeneralization, but there are reasons, because they play to each other countries' strengths. And this is especially important with what we've seen in the region with, the U.S.'s humiliating retreat of its military occupation of Afghanistan. That, this is a major change. Afghanistan is now in the hands of the Taliban again. And that change, of course, raises the prospect of destabilization, of security risks, at least the possibility of that. Once again, I think it is the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, Russia, China cooperating with the Central Asian states, that are the best format to provide stability and security for the region, even with the challenge of Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Otorbaev, less than 1 minute. So yeah. What do you make of that? Synergy and cooperation, China-Russia in the region?
Sometimes we're hearing there is disagreements between Russia and China and Central Asia, who is the first, who is the second. All those things are jokes. So we have harmonious relationship with Russia and China, and so far things going very well. Again, we live for generations and centuries together. We'll continue to live for the century generations together. There is no other way that we can go to the other planet. We will be here. We will be really enjoying situation when biggest economic powers in Earth will be in our region. Together with them, we will be prosper. Yeah. Without friendship, without trust, we will not be doing anything.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Otorbaev. And on that note, we conclude today's show. Again, many thanks to our guests. You can also find us on the CGTN app on YouTube. I'm Xu Qinduo. Thanks for being with us. See you next time.
This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Hey, welcome to The World Today on CGTN. I'm Li Qiuyan, joining you live in Beijing. Our top story, there have been mixed reactions over a coup in Burkina Faso, which saw its democratically elected president deposed by the military. Now, France and the United Nations are condemning the move, while several hundred people in the country are hailing the takeover. Our Lucy in Kambu Melba is following the developments for what's in the capital city. Thank you for joining us this hour. What's it like there now?